Talking Property on 2UE with Clinton Maynard and Peter Esho. Thanks to Fraser's Property. The difference is real. Go to frasersproperty.com.au.
Welcome to the program. Over the next hour, we will give you a comprehensive wrap on everything related to the issue that dominates talk in this city, and that issue, of course, is real estate. My co-host, as he joins me each week, is, of course, Peter Esho. G'day, Peter.
Good evening, Clinton. Good evening, everybody.
We will take your calls throughout the show, 13 13 32. If you have a question for Peter, perhaps you're thinking of buying, selling, you might be interested in investing in a particular area or moving to an area of Sydney, let us know, 13 13 32. There is plenty to talk about tonight as well, Peter. We're going to have a look at how tax affects your real estate investments and strategies to reduce your taxation burden. It's a dream of many of us to live on the water, and maybe you think that's an unattainable dream. Well, not necessarily. Fraser's Property sponsors this program. We're going to let us in on a few secrets with some of their developments that allow you to do just that.
That's right. We've got just the man in the studio tonight. He's going to tell us all about it.
And in a moment, we'll also update you on how to get the best interest rate deal on your property. But before we get into the state of the market this week, and it certainly was strong on the weekend, Peter, I want to ask you about housing affordability. This was a big issue over the weekend. 1 in 7 Australians will now wait until they're in their 40s to buy their first home. Now, there are 2 reasons for that. One, people are deciding to do things a little differently, a little slower in life.
Yes.
So they might spend time in their 20s travelling, for instance, instead of buying a property. But the second issue is affordability. Quite simply, many younger Sydney people aged in their 20s and even 30s now cannot afford to get into the market, so they wait until their 40s. Is this a sign that the market is going to struggle in years to come because people have left it so late?
It's a very interesting point. People are holding off longer to get married, to have children, to start their own businesses. So it's a trend within society, as you pointed out. I think we have to be very careful before drawing any conclusions. One thing I'll note is many people will hear that and be slightly uncomfortable with that, listening to that statistic that 1 in 7 will have to wait till 40. One thing I'll note is that interest rates, as we're about to hear tonight from our guests, are at historically low levels. They won't be there forever. There will at some point be a reversal in the interest rate cycle.
Absolutely will.
It might take 10 or 20 years. I think it will take at least 10 years. And when that happens, these types of statistics will reverse because rising rates will have a different impact to affordability than lower rates.
So just because the rates rise, that doesn't mean affordability gets worse?
I don't think it gets worse. I think that will have a lot of pressure on pricing, and I think pricing will remain flat over time as salaries rise. You have income rising with interest rates going up, and that'll improve that little statistic there. That 1 in 7 have to wait till 40. That might come back to 30 or 35. Where it has traditionally been. Because
where it's frightening, if people can't buy under the age of 40, if they need to wait until, say, they're even 43, 44, 45, and a mortgage length is 30 years, and of course it can vary, that would mean that you are paying off your mortgage, should you not take out other loans and so forth in the meantime. You're paying a mortgage until you're in your 70s. So retirement age being mid-60s. You could be retired or wanting to retire and still be paying off your house.
Look, I'm sure there are a lot of baby boomers listening to the program saying, well, you know what, 20-year-olds these days and 30-year-olds these days get to do a lot of things they didn't do.
Good point.
They get to travel, they get to educate themselves, they get to party hard and take all of that, and there's a cost to that. So everything does balance out. I think everybody's quite fearful at the moment around affordability because interest rates are low. I think when the rate cycle does reverse, I'm a big believer that a lot of these statistics balance out and self-correct when rates do the opposite, because we are at ridiculously low levels in terms of rates.
Do you think younger people who are concerned about affordability, perhaps they need to alter their expectations somewhat, that perhaps they need to accept that, well, they can't travel for 3 years in their 20s if they do want to buy a house or a unit?
Either that, or by all means travel, enjoy your life, but do not look at purchasing property in the same locality that people did 30 or 40 years ago. You have to venture out. You have to put your thinking cap on, because 30 or 40 years ago, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane were very different to what they are today. They weren't necessarily cosmopolitan cities. And buying an investment in Sydney was not the same as buying an investment in Tokyo or Paris or London. The game has changed. And people, young people, there is hope out there for you. Interest rates are low. You need to put your thinking cap on, think outside the box, look for different types of opportunities, do things differently, not necessarily the same way your parents or your grandparents have done things.
And we'll talk about during the program tax implications when it comes to investing. But is it a tactic, for instance, for someone in their 20s to think, okay, affordability is an issue.
Yep.
Living in an area where I want to live is going to be a big issue for me. What about buying an investment property, perhaps in a part of Sydney that I don't want to live in, doing that when I'm in my 20s, taking advantage of very low interest rates and then other tax benefits, maybe staying at home for a few more years as a result?
Well, what I say to people, what I say to investors is live wherever you want, chop and change and travel and meet that person who's going to change your life. But when you're investing, you don't have to invest in what you live in. You invest in what makes financial sense, what you can afford and what you can maintain given your lifestyle. And that doesn't even need to be in Sydney. We are a beautiful country, and there are many parts of this country that are underrepresented from this boom that are still very good value and affordable and will grow over the next 20 or 30
years. Do you
years.
think the government and governments right across the country, federal and state, could be doing more to encourage people to buy outside of Sydney?
I think they can, but every time the government tries to manipulate a market that's so large, they tend to stuff it up. So I think what we need to see is a business response. I think businesses need to exploit these opportunities, create the jobs, and people will move.
14 past 6, this is Talking Property for 2UE's sponsors, Fraser's Property. Give them a call, 13 38 38, or visit the website frasersproperty.com.au. Fraser's Property, the difference is real. Now, looking at the market across the weekend, Peter, it was a very strong auction market this weekend.
Very strong, well into the 80s, depending on which measure you use. It was around the mid-80s in Sydney, and I think that's just testament to the impact of interest rates. It takes a couple of weeks, but once the market gets a hint that rates have fallen, it has a huge impact on sentiment, and we saw it in Sydney over the weekend. Very, very strong.
But the interest rate effect wouldn't yet be felt. So we don't have more money in our pocket yet. The banks haven't yet, while they've announced what they're doing, they're only passing on half of it. That hasn't yet taken effect. So how does it work so quickly when it comes to an auction clearance rate?
We have become a very instant impatient society because of technology, because of the democratization of information, where we now preempt the action. So investors today are so well informed, are powered by financial institutions that want to lend to them, information that's readily available, and they will move very, very quickly. They don't necessarily have to wait until their bank account is adjusted.
An auction clearance rate of around 80%. What does that mean for the market overall?
That's as high as it comes.
Yeah.
Very rarely do you see a sustained 80% plus clearance rate over a long period of time. This is boom time stuff.
And I know stock has been a little low this winter compared to last winter. The number of auctions each weekend has been not quite half, but maybe 60% of what we experienced last winter. Is that contributing to a higher clearance rate as well?
I think it is. I think the election did distort things, and I think the real test will come over the next couple of months when that stock does come on.
Obviously, the RBA's interest rate decision is significant, particularly significant if you are planning to buy or invest in the next couple of months. Vince Turner is from Uno Home Loans and joins us to discuss rates at the moment. G'day, Vince.
G'day, guys. How are you?
Thanks for your time,
good.
Vince.
Thanks,
we're just talking about the auction clearance rates. Do you think it's had that much of a fast effect? The fact the RBA has cut the rates and the big bank lenders haven't actually passed it on in full, but the clearance rate has gone above 80%. Does it take hold that quickly?
I think Peter's right. I think there's a bit of preempting happening where people think, well, this has come down, and if it hasn't already where I'm at, it's going to. And also, I think a lot of the commentary that came out from people like NAB saying, hey, it's on its way down further, people like, well, you know, if I've been sitting on the sidelines for a bit waiting for an election to come to fruition and maybe a rate cut, then that's enough to get back in. I would totally agree with Peter.
Vincent, what are we seeing in terms of pricing? What's the money now doing? Where's the pricing at, say, for variable home loan rates at the moment?
Yeah. Well, actually, there's probably a few little interesting things that we sort of picked up. We ran some of the data, you know, and at the moment on the fixed rates, smaller lenders actually seem to be winning. There's, you know, a lot of the smaller sort of second tier or the regional specialist lenders are winning actually on the fixed rates. And Actually, smaller lenders too for variable, but only for these low LVRs. It's really once you start to get into the kind of 85, 90% sort of plus territory, then the major lenders actually start to become competitive again. And look, everyone, starting below sort of 4%, there's a lot around at 3.69, 3.75. So there's plenty of options in there, and it's really only at the top end of town from an LVR perspective that it starts to bump back over 4%.
If you are on a variable rate and you say paying 4%, should you be talking to your bank at the moment about a change?
Look, you always sort of think as soon as you see a rate drop, there's opportunity to go back and ask for something better or look around for something better. And it's quite specific. I think if people, are sitting on a 60% LVR and they haven't really looked at their rates for a couple of years, they absolutely should be, looking for a better deal. And if their current bank's not going to help them with that, then, potentially looking elsewhere as well.
Just a quick one. Who's the most aggressive lender out that you're seeing? When you're casting your eye out there, who's hungry for business?
That's a real look. ING actually, have come out pretty strong in the last couple of weeks on some of that sort of that lower LVR stuff. We heard rumour of a 5.54, a 3.54 is from Bank of Sydney, I think it was.
Wow.
So, which is, if cash rate's 1.5, that's just 2 bumps above the cash rate.
Did you say that was Bank of Sydney, Vince?
Yeah, Bank of Sydney did it. We saw that rate come out.
I'll just ask you that question on those small lenders that perhaps aren't as widely known as the big banks, obviously. Should a customer, and they might be a customer of one of the big banks, do they need to have any concerns about going to one of those smaller lenders that they might not know of?
Yeah, look, it's a great question because we've been running focus groups on this and if people consistently say, oh, look, I want to get my money from a major lender, and you think, well, they're lending you the money. It shouldn't be too much of a concern. And I think in an environment where we expect at the system level, RBA level rates to stay low for a little while, you really shouldn't be shouldn't have an undue concern over working with a smaller lender, especially if you can lock rates in for, 3 or 4 years. So I think it surprises me that people are worried about going to a lender they've never heard of when they're borrowing money rather than giving money.
Because this might seem like an uneducated question, but say that small lender goes bust.
Right.
What actually happens to the borrower?
Well, you still owe the money to whoever ultimately takes that institution on.
So no one can come in and take your house away from them, can?
No. I mean,
the title's yours.
Yeah, the title is yours. But look, the thing that's usually the bigger concern is if suddenly, like you have what happened in 2007, the funding environment changes, and their source of funds is the open market, and that suddenly changes. Yep. But then you're well within your own to just refinance again to another lender. So you sort of think, well, why? What's the risk? So. It's quite surprising.
Vincent, the next move. We're going to talk to you before the next move in a couple of weeks. But where's your gut feel? One more down, or you think they'll hold off to a Melbourne Cup day?
I think there's going to be a bit of levelling off here, to be honest. I think, as you said, if they're going to come into spring, you're going to see a bunch of activity in some of the major cities, especially some of the ones that have been perhaps underperformed the last few months, and they start to stabilise. You'd think, look, 1.5 pretty low. I personally don't agree with the NAB call down to 1%, but time will tell.
Very interesting.
Thanks a lot for your time, Vince.
Not a welcome, guys. Thanks for having me.
Vince Turner, who's from Uno Home Loans, and the NAB believes 2 more cuts in the next year of 0.25 each, which would take the official cash rate, the RBA's cash rate, to 1%.
I think they're cutting. I think they have to cut.
But isn't it an indication that the cuts don't have the same effect as they did 5 years ago?
Yeah, but a lot of people don't understand that the central bank has one clear mandate, and that is to target inflation.
Yeah, so they want an inflation rate between 2 and 3%.
And it's not there.
Yeah.
It's well below 2%.
But they need to find some other tools to do that.
Well, they don't have much.
Yeah.
They're not at a desperation level yet. And I think if you have a look at the way the Aussie dollar reacted to the most recent cut, it brushed it completely off. And I think the Reserve Bank needs to continue moving. So, look, I think the economists have it right.